Run it back, Philly. No frauds, no fanboys, no intro.
Run it back, nation. What is good? It is your boy DJ for Run It Back Philly. No frauds, no fanboys, no intros. Watch the Sixers Bulls game with me tonight on Playback TV. Playback.tv/Run It Back Philly. If you're not over there watching games with us, hanging out with us during the streams, what are you really doing with your life? Join the community. Playback.tv/Run It Back Philly. The Philadelphia 76ers are 2 games behind the Milwaukee Bucks right now, and they can clinch a playoff berth with a win tonight over the Chicago Bulls. We were rooting against the Bucks last night, live on Playback TV. We were all watching it together. It was a fun time. Toronto Raptors were up in the third quarter, and then they absolutely choked in the fourth because the Toronto Raptors are just not good. The Bucks are very, very good, and Brook Lopez is a very, very valuable weapon for them, especially when Giannis is being double and triple teamed. So the Bucks are easily the Sixers' biggest competition in the entire NBA right now, and we are 2 games behind them in the Eastern Conference. It will be nice to get the 1 seed. We'll see what happens, but the Sixers can clinch a playoff berth tonight with a win over the Chicago Bulls. The Philadelphia 76ers are also number 1 in the NBA power rankings right now. And over their last 10 games, they have the highest net rating of any team in the NBA, and that is 4 points higher than any other team over the last 10 games. So once again, the Sixers played down to competition all season. They've played up to competition all season. And in the hardest part of the schedule, the second half of the season, the hardest second half schedule in the entire NBA, they are the best team in the NBA during the hardest schedule in the NBA. You know what I'm trying to say. I'm not sure how to say it exactly, but you know what I'm trying to say. They're playing up when the schedule got the toughest, and it's been incredible so far. And let's watch it continue. Not that the Chicago Bulls are part of the toughest schedule, but you know what I'm saying. Also this, tweeted out by my dude RB Philly Take, the 76ers are 36-2 this season when going into the fourth quarter with a lead. So maybe the narrative that we've been carrying of this team's ability to blow leads and blow games over the past couple of years is finally gone. The 76ers are 36-2 when heading into the fourth quarter with a lead. They've only blown 2 entire games out of 38 when they've been leading heading into the fourth quarter. It also shows you how many games they've headed into the fourth quarter without a lead and won. And that led me to this question. With all of the flaws that we've seen throughout the season, with all of the highs and lows, with all of the ups and downs, with all of the questioning, the coach questioning, the GM's decisions, all of those things, we're seeing exactly what the 76ers are right now. And it's seeming like Daryl Morey has done an amazing job with what he's been given. You know, having to deal with the Al Horford contract when he first got here, having to deal with the Ben Simmons situation. When the Sixers play the toughest competition this year, it's becoming clear that Daryl Morey did probably the most he could possibly do with what he was given when he got here. And so I'm asking this question. Is this the best team that has been put around Joel Embiid so far in his career? And the answer is yes. And the answer is yes because of this. And I know a lot of you are going to say the 2018-19 team with Jimmy Butler that went to 7 games with the championship Toronto Raptors. I know a lot of you are going to say that team was the best team around Joel Embiid, but that team wasn't the best team that's been around Joel Embiid. And I do think also that team's success or how good that team was inflated a little bit because the Toronto Raptors went on to win the NBA championship. But don't forget the Toronto Raptors went on to win the NBA championship because the Golden State Warriors were injured. I think that was inflated a little bit. That team was not great when you really look at what happened on the floor. First of all, the 2018-19 Sixers team didn't have a point guard. Straight up did not have a point guard. Ben Simmons is not a point guard. He never was a point guard. I was screaming that for years. And every time you got deep into the playoffs, it became blatantly obvious that Ben Simmons was not a point guard, and it became blatantly obvious that you were trying to play a basketball game without a point guard who can facilitate from the top of the key, and you had to innovate on the fly. Innovating on the fly with that team was Jimmy Butler basically playing point guard when the game got down to a half-court game in the playoffs. Innovating on the fly was also the fact that that team, when games got down to a half-court game in the playoffs and Ben Simmons couldn't do anything, Brett Brown ran the entire game through J.J. Redick dribble handoffs, and I knew for a fact that using a bench player like J.J. Redick, who was just a three-point sniper off the bench most of his career, as the main part of your offense was going to kill you in the end. And when it came down to Game 7, the end of that game, aside from Kawhi hitting a four-bounce buzzer beater that's never been done before in NBA history, what team would that happen to other than the 76ers? Aside from that, the last two possessions for the Sixers in that game were turnovers because J.J. Redick had the ball in his hands 40 feet away from the rim. Because you didn't have a point guard. In reality, the spacing for Joel Embiid on that team was not good. You're telling me you had Jimmy Butler, a career 28% three-point shooter, Tobias Harris, someone who loves to score in the paint, and Ben Simmons, a career 0-point percentage shooter fraud. You had those three guys around Joel Embiid, and you expected that to be enough to get you to the NBA Finals. The spacing was bad at the end of the day, and it was going to come out eventually. It took till the second round, but it came out. The spacing was bad. In fact, Joel Embiid had his lowest scoring game in his career that season in November against the Toronto Raptors. He finished the game with 0 points in 33 minutes. And in that game, Ben Simmons had 2 total field goal attempts. I mean, it was obvious. You could just throw the kitchen sink at Joel Embiid. There wasn't enough perimeter action, and we were desperate for live ball gads. We were desperate for perimeter players who could space the floor for Joel Embiid. This season, you have perimeter players who can space the floor for Joel Embiid. In reality, that 2018-19 team only beat the Brooklyn Nets in the playoffs. They beat them 4-1. The Brooklyn Nets were not a good team at the time. And the Toronto Raptors at 58-24 on that season were very beatable. They weren't even the best team in the NBA and went on to win the championship. They were very beatable. I don't even think they were the best team in the East. I think the Bucks were. But the Sixers folded in the second round because that team was not great. It was overhyped because they went 7 games. And people who really didn't watch it think that they only lost that series because of a lucky shot, but that's not the truth. This 76ers team is the closest to perfect as far as roster construction for Joel Embiid as it's been his entire career. It should have been the goal of the management the day he was drafted. They should have said, what do we need to put around Joel Embiid? They should have said, not a guy who won't shoot the ball. They should have said, not a 6'10 point guard who won't shoot the ball. And they should have drafted Brandon Ingram. And you could, hindsight's 20/20. You could go back and forth with all the things they should have done, all the things they did wrong. It took them 8 years. But they finally put the right team around Joel Embiid. It's not perfect, but I think it's as good as it possibly can be with the things that Daryl Morey had to deal with when he came here. James Harden is averaging 22 points, 23 points almost, 11 assists, 6 rebounds, on damn near 40% three-point shooting, on 7 attempts per game. So we went from a point guard who wouldn't shoot the ball at all to a point guard who's one of the best facilitators of all time and is shooting 7 3-pointers a game. That's exactly what Joel Embiid has needed his whole career. And as a result of that, Joel Embiid is averaging the highest points per game he's ever averaged in his career. And last year, with James Harden, he averaged the highest points per game he's ever averaged in his career because that spacing allows him a lot of one-on-ones in the paint. And let's be serious, a one-on-one with Joel Embiid is an automatic bucket. But it also has granted him a lot of easy buckets because James Harden draws the defense and dumps the ball down to Joel in the perfect spot all the time. It's just taken Joel Embiid's game to the level that it should have been his whole career because he finally has a goddamn point guard. Then you have Tyrese Maxey as your number 3 scorer who's shooting 40 plus 40% from, I don't know why I can't talk right now, who's shooting 40+% from three-point range this season. But since returning to the lineup, since returning to the starting lineup, he's shooting 53.7% from three. So that 2018-19 team, you had Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris as the 2 and the 3 on the pecking order. The number 2 on this team is shooting 40% from three, and the number 3 on this team, since returning to the starting lineup after his injury, is shooting 53.7% from three. Are you kidding me? This is the best team that's been around Joel Embiid his whole career. Easily. Now you add role players who can play both sides of the floor and do a little bit of everything, like DeAnthony Melton, who's been absolutely massive for the 76ers this season. Defensive side of the ball, creating havoc for the other team, forcing turnovers, transition game, steals into points. It's been incredible. Just last game against the Pacers, he had 6 freaking steals. The kid is unbelievable. It's such a huge pickup by Daryl Morey. DeAnthony Melton has been amazing. He's exactly what this team needed out of a role player, a two-way guard who can dribble, pass, and shoot, and also play defense. Also, I'm hoping that Jalen McDaniels steps in and gets more of a role. Maybe not this season, but maybe next season. Maybe they extend him. I'm not sure what his contract is looking like, but Jalen McDaniels, another player who can play both sides of the floor, can dribble, pass, shoot a little bit, rebound, play the defensive side of the ball. These are the type of players that the Sixers have been missing for years. I think those 2 pickups are huge on the resume of what Daryl Morey's done for this team. Also, the Sixers' main weaknesses, which I don't know if they will hold them back or not. Again, every team has holes. Every team's superstars hide their weaknesses enough to eventually win championships. No team has ever been perfect. Maybe the 2016 Warriors were the closest. Maybe the 96 Bulls, I think, were the 72-10 team, were the closest. But realistically, in the grand scheme of the history of the game, no team is perfect. Every team has flaws. So we'll see if the top side of the Sixers roster can hide their deficiencies enough and overcome their deficiencies in the playoffs and win an NBA championship. The Sixers' main deficiencies are Tobias Harris, and so far, at least on the offensive side of the ball, PJ Tucker. And I don't want to say that because I love PJ Tucker's effort. I love what he does on the defensive end. I love his hustle, his fight for offensive rebounds and things like that. But PJ Tucker is, for whatever reason, averaging 1.8 three-point attempts per game in about 30 minutes per game. The only time he's averaged less three-point attempts per game, he was playing 19 minutes in Milwaukee. On teams where he's played more than 20 minutes per game, that is the lowest three-point attempts per game in his entire career, 1.8. You would think being on the court with James Harden and Joel Embiid drawing the defense, he would have more three-point attempts than any time in his career, but he actually has less three-point attempts than any time in his career. And if you watch it, a lot of times he's open and he pump fakes and passes, and I start calling the guy pump fake PJ. I don't know why he won't shoot the ball, but I hope he picks it up. Because I just don't think you can have him in the starting lineup if he's going to stand in the corner and refuse to shoot the damn ball. We need you to play defense, rebound, and shoot the ball in the corner. So I need PJ to pick it up. I don't know what's up with him. Maybe he's another player that just comes into Philly, puts on a Sixers uniform, and loses all of his talent. But I think PJ, at least on the offensive side of the ball, is unfortunately one of the Sixers' biggest flaws right now. And if he continues to refuse to shoot the ball, I think he should be coming off the bench. I really do. And the Sixers' final biggest flaw is Tobias Harris. Here we go again. Tobias Harris is basically a spare tire. You know what I mean? The car can make it down the highway. The spare tire gets the job done. Technically, you have 4 tires on the car, right? But you could get a better tire. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not. But Tobias Harris is a detriment to this team. Let's call it what it is. To take up that much of the cap space and be a 14-point-per-game player is just not good. He's not the ideal stretch four next to Joel Embiid. He called himself a sharpshooter. He's just not a sharpshooter. He's kind of a sharpshooter. You would really want a rebounding, three-point shooting stretch four, next to Joel Embiid. Tobias Harris likes to score points in the paint. He likes to back down point guards and waste the whole shot clock. And then, he likes to try to poster guys once in a while because he wants a big emphatic dunk to show everyone he can do it, and he gets blocked at the rim because he really can't jump, and he really has no hops for a 6'8", 6'9" NBA player. I'm just saying, Tobias Harris is a good NBA player. He's just not the perfect fit. So I really think that's Tobias Harris' fit on this team is probably the Sixers' biggest flaw still. And we'll see if they can overcome that. In reality, if the Sixers don't win an NBA championship this season, this upcoming offseason, they shed the Tobias Harris contract. They mini retool once again, and they come into next season probably as the absolute favorite to win the NBA championship. If they don't get it done this season, I think Daryl Morey perfects the roster this offseason, and the Sixers are lethal next year, and maybe they have a run of 3 in a row like the Warriors did back in the day. We'll see. But that's my take on it. You tell me what you think. Is this the best Sixers team they've ever put around Joel Embiid? And what do you think their odds are of winning a championship? And say whatever else you want in the comments, man. And hit the like button and all that good stuff. And join us on Playback TV tonight against the Chicago Bulls. We'll be there. Playback.tv/RunItBackPhilly. Peace.